We build on a concept that I believe was first introduced into the literature by Edward Dutton. He's an interesting chap. He called them evil geniuses. But we redefined them as a novel anthropological type. We called them anti-geniuses. And they're like epistatic mutants on steroids. These are epistatic mutants who have the ability to massively externalize the fitness costs to their mutation. It's by coming up with ideas that just ruin fertility for normal people.
Did you mention some of the examples of...
We gave a couple of examples of very prominent, actually in many cases female, intellectuals, scare quotes, on both the right and the left, funnily enough. So we found examples from the political right as well as the political left, by their words ye shall know them, who have actively promoted in their own works antinatalism, and we hold them up as exemplars of the superlytic type personality.
If they're female, I would simply call witches. That's the term.
Yes, but these are in a league of their own. Just as geniuses are an extreme example of positive social epistasis, because these geniuses increase the group level fitness of their host populations massively through inventing some amazing gadgets or a novel method of cartography, or some mathematical formula that allows that group to prevail in conflict, or explore and colonize new territories, or go to the moon, or go to Mars. This is what geniuses do. They elevate the group fitness. Well, these anti-geniuses, they do things that massively circumscribe the fitness of their groups. Their ideas redound negatively on group fitness.
Like Margaret Mead.
Well, Andrea Dworkin was one of the examples. A living simulacrum of Jabba the Hutt, essentially. But extraordinarily influential and very intelligent. It must never be understated the level of intelligence that these individuals have. She was an incredibly intelligent person, but she was purposefully driven towards reducing the fitness of her host population rather than boosting it, which she might have done had her mutation load been somewhat lower. So that's one example. But there are actually quite a few we've found, and we've looked at their writings, and we've found indications that these individuals are overwhelmingly childless, which makes them actually typical of the broader genius type, essentially. But they're not trying to be parochial or collectively avuncular. They're doing the opposite. They're trying to spite their own populations by radically critiquing these group-selected institutions and deconstructing them and replacing them with norms which are anti-natalist. And they use their high intelligence to do this. They're very effective at doing this. And in the absence of group selection, there's a pathway through which the carriers of these variants can attain this extreme power and have this extreme negative effect on social epistasis, which they wouldn't be able to do under conditions of high group selection. People would be imbued with religiosity and purposefulness and existential meaning. So they wouldn't put much stock in these ideas and they'd socially exclude people like this.
I mean, I think Andrea Dworkin has got to qualify as one of the worst people in late 20th century.
What we're trying to do, and this is really difficult to do, is to work out the leverage effect of these individuals. So we've got these measures of corporate fitness measuring type 2 group fitness. That's the ratio of your group to the rest of the planet's population. So how well you are doing as a group is a function of your biomass. What your standing population size is at any given point in time relative to the rest of the world's population. So, if you look at Europeans and Americans, for example, Europeans as an ethnic group as a whole, they're increasing as a proportion of the world's population up until around 1900, and thereafter they start to decrease. So, you can use this as a very pure measure of group-selected competitiveness. And you can do this at the level of specific empires as well. There's a wonderful paper in which looks at the British Empire, the Anglophonic Brits, and we look at Gaelic population. We look at where all the French people are living, and we look at the ratio of the changes in the sizes between these two populations over time. And you can see that as the British ethne increases its share of the world's population, French ethne decreases until they reach a kind of stable equilibrium, where the Brits are 3 times more numerous per capita.
I don't know if people here are familiar with Andrea Dworkin, but this woman endorsed incest, for God's sake. I mean, this woman argued that the relationship between a parent and a child was sexual.
She challenged every single normative value.
She's just vile, vile, and she looked vile. She's a beast woman and died young, fortunately. She was only about 60.
But very intelligent, and very, very, very capable of penetrating into the elite, which she did with aplomb. She was extraordinarily well received by her fellow elites. She was given a platform. She's one of the most celebrated second-wave feminists alive. She was instrumental in initiating the third wave of feminism. She has had a huge impact. But given the nature of our societies, and given the lack of group selection, and given the lack of filtration favouring group-selected phenotypes among the elites, she embodies a kind of an anti-type, essentially a reverse group-selected phenotype.
She was morbidly overweight, but nevertheless weighed the same as a duck.